They were the faces of pure, unfiltered joy. For a generation growing up in the grip of the Great Depression, the Little Rascals, or our gang, weren't just actors, they were friends, playmates, and the embodiment of a childhood that felt free and untouchable. We remember the freckles, the messy hair, the muddy faces, and the sound of laughter that seemed to come straight from a simpler time. But behind that wholesome facade of clubhouses and pie fights, a different story was unfolding. For the children who made America laugh, the cameras didn't just capture their smiles, they seemed to seal a dark fate. What happened to these kids when the laughter stopped and the world moved on? The truth is a chilling chronicle of violence, addiction, heartbreak, and a curse that seemed to follow them from the set to the grave. Today, we uncover the tragic endings of the Little Rascals, proving that for some, the brightest spotlight casts the darkest shadow. Let's start with the most iconic face of the gang, Carl Switzer, the boy who was Alfalfa. With his off-key serenade, cowlick, and stubborn confidence, he became the beating heart of the series. But the fame that made him a star at 8 years old became an anchor that dragged him down for the rest of his life. When the series ended, Alfalfa didn't fade away gracefully, he crashed. He bounced from job to job, dog trainer, hunting guide, trying to outrun the shadow of the character who had defined him. His personal life mirrored that chaos. A quickie marriage to a grain heiress promised stability, but it quickly soured into a bitter divorce. By the late 1950s, the former child star was broke and desperate, his life spiraling into violence. He was shot in the arm by an unknown gunman in a bar parking lot, a crime never solved, and was later arrested for illegally cutting down Christmas trees just to make ends meet. The end came on a cold night in 1959 over a petty dispute about a hunting dog and a $50 debt. In a violent confrontation with a former friend, Switzer was shot. The bullet tore through his groin, and at just 31 years old, Alfalfa was gone. The man who once made millions smile died with a net worth of virtually nothing, his grave marked only by a hunting dog and a Masonic symbol. Then there was the leader of the pack, George Spanky McFarland. With his sharp tongue and bossy charm, Spanky was the ringleader, the kid we all wanted to follow. But unlike Alfalfa's violent end, Spanky's tragedy was one of quiet suffocation. He spent his entire adult life trying to escape a character he played at 3 years old. That pressure seeped into his marriages, as he struggled to build a stable life while being constantly reminded of the past. He found some stability, marrying twice and having 3 children, but friends described a man who seemed perpetually exhausted and withdrawn, haunted by the ghost of his own childhood. The energy that defined him as a kid was drained by decades of trying to live up to an image he could never control. He died of a heart attack in 1993 at 64, a reminder that even for those who survived the initial storm, the emotional toll of early fame could last a lifetime. For some, the industry's cruelty was even more direct. Billy Thomas, the boy we knew as Buckwheat with the unforgettable voice and signature hair, was a fan favorite. But behind the laughter, troubling stories from the set lingered for decades. Former crew members whispered that the young actor was sometimes given syrups laced with mild sedatives to keep him still during long takes. Whether true or not, the rumor haunted him. As an adult, those close to him said he suffered from hand tremors and nervous tension, physical echoes of a childhood spent in a pressure cooker. He walked away from acting, finding quiet work behind the scenes at Technicolor. But even that peace was short-lived. In 1980, at only 49 years old, he died suddenly of a heart attack. Just 10 weeks earlier, he had been on stage at a Hollywood reunion, receiving a standing ovation that moved him to tears. It was a moment of validation that came tragically too late. The story of Matthew "Stymie" Beard represents a different kind of Hollywood tragedy, the descent into addiction. As the smooth-talking kid with the oversized derby hat, Stymie was the brains of the operation. But his childhood wasn't one of playful mischief, it was one of immense pressure. His paycheck supported a family of 13 siblings, and when the roles stopped coming, the pressure didn't let up. He spiraled quickly. As a teenager, he turned to theft to support a growing marijuana habit, which soon escalated into a severe heroin addiction. He spent years cycling in and out of jail, a forgotten child star while the world still remembered the smiling boy from the shorts. It took years, but Stymie eventually broke free from his addiction through a controversial rehab program. He made a miraculous comeback, appearing on shows like Sanford and Son and in the Buddy Holly Story. But just as he had rebuilt his life, tragedy struck again. Days after his 56th birthday, he suffered a stroke, fell down a staircase, and died from complications. They buried him with the legendary derby hat placed beside him, a final nod to the character that both made and unmade him. For the girls, the pressure was a different kind of poison. Darla Hood was the object of every boy's affection, the sweet, flirtatious heart of the gang. But that image of perfection became a cage. Rumors persisted for years that Darla was pushed from childhood to stay tiny and polished, an obsession that allegedly spiraled into severe eating disorders and a reliance on diet pills. While she kept singing in nightclubs and raising her 3 children, the private pressure was immense. Her tragic end is perhaps the most shocking of all. In 1979, while organizing a Little Rascals reunion, a moment meant to celebrate the past, she went in for a routine appendectomy. What followed was a horrifying chain of events. She contracted hepatitis from a contaminated blood transfusion, leading to heart failure. She died at just 47 years old, a senseless tragedy that turned a routine surgery into a death sentence. Then there are the stories that feel less like tragedy and more like pure horror. Norman Chubby Chaney was the heavy-set boy whose frustrated expression made him hilarious. But the role trapped him in a cruel image. Doctors later discovered he suffered from a glandular illness that caused his weight to skyrocket. He never married, never had a family, and died at just 21 years old from a heart condition. But the heartbreak continued for 76 years. His grave remained unmarked because his mother couldn't afford a headstone. It wasn't until a fundraising effort in 2012 that a marker was finally placed for the boy whose face was known across America. And then there's Scotty Beckett, Spanky's loyal sidekick. His adult life was a rapid descent into chaos. A career destroyed by drinking, gambling, and arrests. His body was shattered in a horrific car crash that left him needing crutches and a wheelchair for the rest of his life. In 1968, at just 38 years old, after a savage beating under mysterious circumstances, he was found dead in a nursing home. Pills and a note were found, but the cause was never officially determined, fueling dark rumors of debts and dangerous people. The list goes on, each story more heartbreaking than the last. Bobby Weezer Hutchins, the eager little tagalong, was allegedly underfed to keep him small for the screen. He joined the Army Air Forces to escape his past, only to die in a plane crash just days before graduation. He was 20. Billy Froggy Laughlin, known for that strange croaking voice, died in a scooter accident at 16. His life was cut so short that there was no fortune to leave behind. Alan Farina Hoskins, one of the first black child stars, faced a brutal climate of racial hatred so intense the studio assigned him a bodyguard. Despite his talent, he was later blacklisted during the Red Scare and died of cancer at 59. The children of our gang were sold to us as the picture of carefree innocence. But behind the laughter, they were navigating a system that treated them as products, not people. Their stories aren't just tragic endings, they are a stark warning. They remind us that the bright lights of Hollywood can be a curse, and that the little faces that make us laugh often pay a price we never see. Which of these stories shocked you the most?